Hi guys. Before we proceed to this video, we've got something very important to share with you. Neoliberalism, Inequality and Authoritarianism by Professor John V. Kofis is available for purchase. You can order it directly from the publisher Little French eBooks or through Amazon.
Sudan is one of the richest countries in terms of mineral resources and energy, including the very valuable rare earth minerals, which are very important for the defense sector of a country, as well as high-tech industries, including artificial intelligence devices and so forth. And also, rare earths are a point of controversy in the trade wars between the United States and China, China being the country with the largest deposits of rare earths in the world, and using those as leverage against countries like the United States that impose tariffs and sanctions on China. Although Sudan is very rich in natural resources, a country which is situated just south of Egypt, north of Ethiopia, with access to the Red Sea, a very important strategic location with a major port, the port of Sudan, that a number of countries, of course, wish to have geopolitical influence there. From the United States, China, Russia, the major players in world politics, but also regional players. Very important in that respect. And although it has all of this, a country of 50 to 52 million is one of the poorest in the world, with 70% of its population below poverty line, with half of the population in starvation. And indeed, the United Nations has deemed that this is the worst humanitarian crisis in modern history. And it started, actually started before 2023. It's going now on the third year, completing the third year in the spring of 2023. It started there, although the antecedents really go back to the Arab Spring Revolution, the Arab Spring uprisings of 2011, as we will see, and even further back, as we will see in the longer analytical video, which I invite you to take a look at. The question is, why has the world turned its back on the Sudan? Is it because the world is so narrowly focused on the Russia-Ukraine conflict that the United States and NATO are indeed have been involved and are behind Ukraine against Russia and its major allies, China and India, among others, of course? Is it because the world is also focused on the genocide in Gaza, a very important war which has not ended, despite claims that the United States has made during the Trump administration that this is over and that there's some kind of a transition? All evidence is that Israel is not, has not institutionalized peace. It has not ended ethnic cleansing. In fact, it's continuing the illegal settlements in the West Bank. It is not letting up on the Lebensraum idea that Israeli Zionists have, which is the greater Israel idea. Lebensraum, German word meaning living space, the Greater Israel idea, which has led Israel, the Israeli government, to not only not stop the war against the Palestinian people, but actually expand and hit countries from Yemen to Iran to Syria to Iraq to Lebanon. And of course, to continue to have ambitions in determining the geopolitical balance of power in the Middle East as the preeminent geopolitical power, and given its latest move in Somaliland, to have a role in East Africa and in specifically in the Red Sea. And this is where the Sudan comes in. The Sudan is a country that seemingly, according to the Western press, the civil war that has been going on now for 3 years, this is the beginning of 2026, the civil war that has been going on for all this time is really about warlords. It is really about the Sudanese armed forces, the these SAF, against the Rapid Support Forces, the paramilitary group. The government, Sudanese armed forces, enjoying the support of Saudi Arabia, and behind Saudi Arabia, a number of other players, including, of course, Western powers. And on the other side, the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, behind which is mainly the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, and the many analysts believe that this crisis in the Sudan is indeed a proxy war between Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, except when one investigates this crisis, which, like I said, the United Nations lists this as one of the world's worst humanitarian crises in modern history. When one deconstructs everything and all the puzzles, and it's very, unless one really digs into all of the aspects of the Sudanese civil war, it is very difficult to ascertain exactly who is who are the good guys, if we can put it in plain language. What is going on? Is this a struggle for democracy? Is this a struggle for minerals, which of course the Sudan has a lot of? Is it for oil, which the Sudan has? Is it for gold, which again, Sudan has in the Darfur area, where the paramilitary group, the Rapid Force, has control of? What is this struggle about? And who is on whose side? When one looks deeper into this, it becomes clear that it has so many tentacles, domestically and regionally and then globally. And it is not surprising that that the crisis hasn't been solved, because, as I will point out and analytically in the longer video, this is indeed a civil war of two rival warlords, generals, who were formerly allies, by the way, in suppressing the democratic aspirations of the people of the Sudan in late 2018, early 2019. So this is in essence a counter-revolution, and you often, when you research and you analyze what's going on here, we often see that there are countries that are playing both sides, including Saudi Arabia, by the way, which is clearly on the side of the pro-Islamic government in Khartoum. So what you have is a very complex situation here. And it isn't clear cut as it seems that that one side is on the side of angels, that indeed one side is on the side of peace and democracy and social justice, because there is no such side in the Sudan. Both sides in this civil war are counter-revolutionary. They're against democracy, against social justice, against peace, against the people, and in favor of disparate elites within the country and internationally. And both, of course, are vying for control of political power to determine the geopolitics, the domestic policy, as well as geopolitics, as well as to determine who will have control of the natural resources to dish out to different companies and individuals favored by each side. So the situation in the Sudan is hardly as clear cut as one might see it. The Western press might see it, given if you just look at the Western press, especially given that the Western press presents this as well. This is a conflict between the northern government forces, predominantly Muslim, versus the southern paramilitary group committed more to being allies of Christians and tribal people. And presumably that's supposed to mean something that, well, one is really committed to religious rights of the majority, the other the religious rights of the minority. It's those camouflage the fact that both sides represent elite interests domestically and internationally. Um, there is the fact is, when you, again, I keep stressing this, when you dig deeper, what you find is countries like Russia. Let's take Russia for example. They're often on both sides. Saudi Arabia has been often on both sides. They have used the paramilitary groups as fighters for mercenary fighters down in Yemen, for example. You often find major players on both sides, and it's very difficult to discern what is going on until one has a clear picture that what this is it's about an attempt to make sure that the regime that takes control of Sudan, especially, by the way, after South Sudan broke off in the aftermath of the Arab Spring, the Afro-Arab Spring uprisings in 2011, and South Sudan became independent. Especially after that, what you find is that there is an attempt to make sure that a Afro-Arab Spring type of revolution for popular sovereignty, social justice, social democracy does not take root in the Sudan. That in fact, that the disparate elites remain in control of its rich natural resources. This is what this is all about. And regional and international players, that is the great powers, as we say, Russia, China, the United States, are not interested in anything but the resources, geoeconomic and geopolitical goals. That's all they're interested in. They are not interested in popular democracy and social justice for the development for social development, for the development of society in the Sudan that benefits the Sudanese people. In the meantime, roughly 35 million have been displaced. There is a population that domestically and globally, this is one of the worst situations in the world of people who have been displaced. And this is also a crisis in healthcare, because something like 80% of the facilities have been destroyed, and there is a healthcare crisis as well. This is not, although there have been Western accounts that, well, why don't those who are pro-Palestinian focus on the Sudan and the genocide? And by the way, that issue, we're going to discuss that issue as well. There is an issue of war crimes, mostly committed by the paramilitary groups in the South. There is that. The question, of course, is whether the International Court of Justice, the ICC, the United Nations have deemed that, and they have not. But there definitely have been atrocities in this war. But the question is, again, who is arming both sides, going at it, and for what purpose? And this is something that we are going to look at. I'm going to look at, and I invite all of you to join me, because Sudan is a reflection of the breakdown of the international order of law, the lawlessness that prevails, and the failure of the United Nations to stop this. And when I say the United Nations, I do mean, by the way, the great powers as well as regional players, instead vying for influence and at the geopolitical and geoeconomic level in the Sudan, while millions of people have been killed. Millions are dying from extreme starvation, famine, in other words, and millions have been displaced. I invite you to look at the longer video. I ask you to write comments, and by all means, please join this channel. Thank you very much.